And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection. I'm your host, Robert Pictou. Family experiences like child abuse and or neglect, domestic violence, parental substance abuse, or family conflict can lead to youth homelessness. On today's Open Connection, we bring you highlights of the documentary Metamorphosis.
I was in 15 foster homes, 5 group homes, and I got tired of them. They were crappy, the people were crappy, nobody knew who you were, and every 3 months you were changing again, and they'd push me back to my mom's, and that was just crap because she's a crackhead. Well, she was still using, her boyfriend was still using, like, the house was like a grow up. And so, like, I tried to go back, I tried to stay, I tried to just be like, okay, ignore them and do your own business. But when you have people like pinning against the wall and screaming in your face and throwing glasses at your head, like, you're not going to stay, you're going to leave.
She kicked me out when I was 11 years old. With my mom, it's kind of been always on and off. Like, I was always at my grandma's house or at my aunt's house or wherever. I was always somewhere else, it seemed like. I mean, she was young and she was partying and did her thing and probably a bit too young to be having a kid, and, you know, she was on the street to start with when she was pregnant with me. So
I grew up an only child and I had lots of friends, but I never really felt close to anybody, like a connection. And when I used drugs, I was accepted. Probably when I found crystal meth was when I really knew, like, after about a year of using, I knew I had a problem. Because I couldn't stop, I would stay up for days. Eventually, I think by about 17 or 18, I was using every day and doing anything I needed to do to get it, really.
The last time that I lived with my mom, she was still using heroin while she was taking care of us. She would leave me with my sister and my little brother by ourselves, and I would have to take care of them. Christmas was horrible. She would buy us expensive toys and then pawn them. Yeah, it sucked. We would never have food in the house. The cops finally found out that we were being left alone when I would always send my sister to school by herself. And I guess she had told her teacher that I was taking care of my brother at my house. And I was only 11 years old. The day before my mom died, she had called and said, I want you guys to live with me. And I said, I don't want to live with you, I want to live with my dad. And she got mad and hung up on me, and she had AWOL'd from her recovery house that night, and she died that same night of a heroin overdose in Pigeon Park. She was 27.
At first I think it's exciting and they're surrounded by friends. Sometimes there's money, you know, there's all sorts of guys down here that'll help a young girl, stay out in the streets and give her money.
You're free, you can do anything you want, anytime you want. There's no restrictions, there's no rules, you just do what you want. It's kind of like a constant party at first.
Unfortunately, I think that there is a real draw to street life. The kids seem to romanticize it. They think, oh, it's so cool, there's no rules, I can do whatever I like, I can stay up as late as I want, I can go wherever I want, I can hang out with the older people, get lots of money real easy, real fast, real quick. And they don't think about having to sleep on the street. They don't think about having to sell their bodies to survive.
There's a ton of different reasons why the kids run away. And a lot of them just find it safer on the streets. Sometimes you get kids that just basically butt heads with their parents over different issues. And I guess the wall between them gets wider and wider until they end up running away and they end up in the streets.
Why would any individual, young or old, give up an ideal home, a nurturing, caring home for the streets? It happens sometimes because it's romanticized, but for the most part, if you'd ask a teenager, do you want to live on the streets for an extended period of time, or do you want to live in a home where you're supported, loved, cared for, and you enjoy going, who would choose to be a street kid?
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. Each year, more than 35,000 Canadians aged 16 to 25 experience homelessness. And this number doesn't reflect the hidden homelessness, people who are couch surfing and not accessing services and therefore harder to measure. Let us return to the conversation of youth homelessness.
It's easier for people to see a young person in pain or without a lot of things and just write them off and say, oh, they chose that way, so it's okay for me to walk by and not get involved or not try to help.
It was actually really lonely. It was incredibly lonely, and I mean, I spent most of my time being high, so, and well, I want to hog all my drugs, so I don't really want to be around too many people. I spent a lot of time trying to find somewhere to be.
I always thought I was going to miss something. I had that feeling and I was drawn to it because, like I said, when I used drugs, I felt like I was a part of something and that I fit in somewhere. And I never really felt that my whole life.
I got a lot of attention from a lot of guys. And the money, you know, there's money everywhere, you know, and alcohol. Anything you wanted, pretty much you can get from the guys. And I thought that was a good thing, but after a while, they all get to know you. They don't want you anymore. They want someone new. And they will get someone younger and new, you know, and you're just left there and you're trapped already by the time they get rid of you.
It was just kind of finding the next person who had dope and doing what I needed to do, being the person I needed to be to fit their needs so that I can manipulate them to give me dope.
I don't know, the toughest things are like, you never know where you're going. You never know if you have a safe place to go or what's going to happen to you that night.
In that little age group, the tweenies we call them, they're not old enough to be eligible for social assistance or a youth agreement, and they're too old for the ministry to panic about their safety. So if you're 13, 14, 15, then you fall in the big hole. If there's safety issues and we have concerns, if an at-risk youth comes here and tells us, I'm really worried about my mom selling drugs, my dad's beating me, whatever, we phone child protection and we get told to help them make a safety plan. And then you send them out again with a safety plan, and that's a really sickening feeling, just waiting for the call that something really horrible did happen to them and you were unable to help them.
With the laws that we have, the Charter of Rights, you know, if your child gets charged with a criminal offense, the parent can't even find out what it is, you know, if they're 15 or 16 years old. You know, so it's very frustrating. I've got a ton of parents I've talked to, like hundreds over the years, that, you know, their child is out in the street and they really can't do anything about it. You know, so it's almost a daily, you know, occurrence when somebody phones me or somebody comes in to see me and their kid is working on the corner, and all we can do is go talk to them and offer them help. But if they refuse, you know, we have to leave them standing there.
I started like working the streets when I was 12, so that was harsh because you're young and it's scary and you have different people all the time and you have to make a certain amount of money to bring back, or you don't want to go back. And so that's hard because you don't want to do what you're doing, but you have to do it to survive.
I think the toughest thing about working with these kids is seeing the ones that you try to help. You try so hard and sometimes we fail. And that's the hardest part. These kids, they're kids. They're babies, some of them. We've had them as young as 12 years old in here pregnant, sleeping on the streets at night, setting fires and shopping carts to stay warm, huddled in the doorway of their elementary school. And it just breaks your heart. You look at them, you look at your own kids, and you think, oh, where's the line that made the difference for this child?
For most people, when they're facing these huge barriers, you know, of like inaccessible services, no support and help, poverty, it's really, really hard. And just to say to someone, oh, it's within you, you know, you just got to try a little bit harder. I find that very sort of, you know, paternalistic, and I don't like it when I hear that. I think it is about building communities and and you know, giving people, providing resources so people can find their own voice and find, and then providing the options so they can make choices and have support to make those choices, and then you'll see those success stories.
Every summer we hire a good number of them to work with us, and they get some experience, something they can put on their resume, but training programs where they can go in and they can learn life skills and they can be taught a trade in a safe and supported environment that does encompass their culture is probably one of the biggest things that we do need.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. You are as young as your faith, as old as your doubt, as young as your hope, and as old as your despair. Let us return to the conversation as Summer shares how it feels to be in the system.
Your social worker changes every 3 months. You don't know who the hell your social worker is now. Your social worker doesn't know who you are. Huh? Who's calling me? Okay, great, yeah, okay. Well, I'll do that. They never get back to you. Okay, that's good. So it starts off with that, like you just slip through because you're just a file on a desk to them.
I think that there needs to be a degree of consistency with young people. If they're dealing with the same worker over and over again, they have an opportunity to build a relationship, to learn how a relationship works, to earn the trust, and to give trust to someone.
Right now, there's a huge lack of actual treatment, like real treatment. We seem intent on open up agencies that, that'll help you once you're addicted. We'll show you how to live with it, and I guess I have a real problem with that. We talk about the 4 pillars approach. We're missing the 2 most important pillars of prevention and treatment. They seem to be non-existent. If a 15 or 16-year-old kid comes up to me and asks me for help, there's not one place that I can think of that I can drive them for help, but I can certainly drive them to a drop-in or a safe injection site or some other facility that'll talk about their drug addiction. So I think we're sort of putting the cart before the horse.
You see laws that are targeted at people who are poor. Now, we have to understand what's going on there, because what we're really saying is that we actually don't care if you're poor. We just don't want you to be visible. The people I meet are people who are desperate to make changes about what's going on in their life, but it's so complex, and the point of access is so difficult, and your whole being is taken up with survival.
He's the last person that's alive. Everybody I've known, and probably you. I mean, they're either they're really hardcore or they're dead.
I can count at least 5 that I know of that are now headstones. People that I was close to, people that I loved and cared for.
Oh, it's sad. I mean, I can't tell you how many kids have passed away over the years, and I'm talking about kids. And when I say kids, I mean even somebody up to 30 years old, because they've really been robbed of their childhood. So I've been at a lot of funerals over the years, and it sucks because it's, they're needless. We don't have to, if they put up the money, and I keep hearing, oh, there's no money for this, no money for that, but you know what? They seem to find money when they want to, millions of it. So I think the money we're spending is ill spent.
There's waiting lists for A&D counselors, there's waiting lists for everything. And like I said, there's tons of addiction, and it needs to, I think people need to address it a lot quicker than what's happening.
So, I mean, if you paint the scenario, I mean, you're just coming off a 4-day crack or meth binge, and, you're starving, you haven't slept in 4 days, your body's overheating, your hygiene is just out the window, there's a couple people after you because you ripped them off for drugs, you don't have any shoes, you go to detox, and they're like, well, that's fantastic, why don't you give us a call back in 24 hours? Makes a lot of sense, right?
When that door of willingness is open, like, people who are clean need to grab onto that and pull them in, right? And if there's not a bed waiting, like, they might not want it the next day.
Well, there's got to be a stage of detoxes. I mean, if a 15 or 16-year-old comes to me, it's got to be treatment on demand. I have to have a place where I can drive that child, for the first week where they detox. After that, there's got to be another, like a house set up they can go to maybe while they're waiting at bed at a treatment center. And when I say treatment, it's got to be long-term, because a lot of these people, I mean, if they've been in the streets for 5 years, you're not going to undo that with a 6-week program. We've got to be talking about a year-long program or even longer.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Addiction to something, whether it be cigarettes, alcohol, other drugs, or certain behaviors, is hardly experienced as something pleasurable by the person who suffers from addiction, but rather as a form of enslavement. In this final segment of Open Connection, we hear hope where there once was despair.
I think I was 19 the first time I really wanted to be clean. I was living in a scummy trailer park out in Maple Ridge with a boyfriend that I didn't want to be with. He had dope, once again. So I stayed for a while, and my mom used to come visit me every couple of weeks just to see me and know that I'm still alive. And eventually she said she wasn't going to come out anymore to see me. It was just like tearing her apart. A lot of pain. If anybody took away that pain, I wouldn't be clean.
So I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to be clean anymore because I knew I'd see the people that I hurt and that I left behind. So I was like, well, if I just, stay away, they won't be hurt.
I got tired of living that lifestyle of always fighting, always having your backup, always worried about who's following you or who's behind you or what's around the next corner. And just tired of the whole, gangster scene, that sounds so mob movie-ish, but
I got clean. and I worked the 12 steps, really, the 12 steps helps me to change my life and my attitude, my behaviors, all of that stuff. And just because I quit the drugs doesn't mean I stopped doing everything else. So once I started picking up those steps again, starting from back in the house, things started to change, my attitude changed, using people, manipulating people, all that stuff started to change. Doesn't mean it went away completely, but it's changing, right?
I appreciate things a lot more. I appreciate what I have, as small or as large as it is. I don't like being hungry. I overstock a lot of things. I don't know if I got that from my grandparents or just that. Seriously, I'm Costco size everything.
There's things that I've learned that normal people already do in their lives. And they know this stuff, but I never did. Because I was loaded and I didn't care about being nice to people and having respect for people and trust and being grateful for things and stuff like that, right? And yeah, I guess that's where my sense of hope comes from, is I know that nothing's too bad in my life that I need to get loaded or whatever, right? And I choose not to be religious or whatever, but I have an energy greater than myself that I believe in or whatever, and I don't know, it's helped me get this far.
It's a long process because it's not just the drugs, it's actually the lifestyle too. You can get clean, but the trouble with a lot of our treatment centers is that they're only focused on the drug problem. They get you clean and they sort of push you back out there. Well, you've never dealt with a real issue. A lot of people down here are on drugs not because they're addicted to drugs. The drugs are a symptom of a bigger problem, and that's the abuse or some traumatic experience that happened to them.
I just wanted so bad not to be like my mother, and it took me a long time. I had to see a counselor every day, a psychiatrist every day, to talk about it because it bugged me so much. And the whole guys, and I had eating disorders when I went to jail. If I couldn't do drugs, I'd do other things to bring myself down there. And about halfway through the program, I started getting better, my self-esteem, and I stopped throwing up, and I accepted my mother's death.
I started listening to people. I saw that I was worth more than what I was doing to myself at the time. I don't know. I took action towards getting rid of my ex-boyfriend now and following through with the police on that whole issue and getting rid of him, and went back to school, finished school, which is surprising. After school I had my daughter, and she was my main motivation, because as soon as I found out I was pregnant, it was that's it. She's the most important thing in the universe, and that was all that mattered to me. So if that meant I had to completely drop everything that I know and change everything that I do, then that was what I had to do.
I don't know, I just realized that, you know, I'm worth more than that. I'm worth more. I just wanted more for myself, and I realized that I can become somebody, you know.
And when we connect with other people and sort of find that sense of community, it becomes very powerful. And that really gives people hope that they can actually change things. And I think that's what we always have to keep kind of working at, to make sure that people aren't lost.
And what worked for me was counseling and talking about it. You know, just telling people, you know, about it. Like I constantly tell my story all the time, you know, to everybody. And they're like, you know, and that's I think what keeps me clean. Whereas, you know, 12-step programs work excellent.
All I want to do is be a nurse and travel. I want to travel and help people, like, because I think Canada needs a lot, but I think there's a lot of other places that are suffering. So, and I just believe that they're suffering a lot worse than we are. And that's all I want to do. I just want to travel and help other people.
I'm doing social work at UBC. I just finished the Community Social Service Worker program and the CETA program, so Special Education Teacher's Assistant.
You know, progress, not perfection, but progress. So, just doing it step by step, doing what I can when I can. It's not exactly the easiest thing.
I want to finish school. Yeah, it's been a while since I was last at school, maybe 6 years. Yeah. So I'm kind of worried about that. I'm kind of scared, you know, that I might not know everything, and, you know, it might discourage me, but I really want to get it done.
I'm very happy with how far I come from, like, where I came from to where I am now. It's like two opposite ends. I'm nowhere near the same person as I was, but I wouldn't be the person that I am now without going through all of that stuff. So
I want to work in addictions for a while, like in a recovery house or a detox center or something like that, and then I want to be a musician in the end of it all. That's what I want as my career. I've wanted to be one for my whole life.
Every day he does something new, and it makes me proud.
it's your past. You may not necessarily be proud of your past, but it is your past. It is where you've come from. It's strength. You made it through all that. You can keep going.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind to his heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.